All right, we're gonna do some scary videos and see what we think of them. Here we go.
Here are some facts that you probably didn't know that one day could save your life. Part 20. If you're ever cooking and the pan catches on fire, do not throw liquid on it. Instead, use the lid to smother the heat and do not remove it for a few minutes.
It's true. That is very true. Fire needs oxygen to continue to burn. Water will commonly cause grease fires to explode or splatter outward, which will actually just make the fire much worse. So you don't ever want to throw any sort of water into a grease fire.
If your pupils don't dilate to the same size, there is a very real chance you have brain damage.
What is going on with this dude's eye here? Is this an editing effect? Is he doing this because he's talking about pupils being fucky? Or is this AI and it's just having trouble rendering his eye? Like, genuinely, what's happening here? What is with the Pac-Man shape that's in his eyeball right now?
A motorcycle helmet is stronger than a skull. Tea bags actually stop bleeding. They contain a chemical called tannic, which naturally clots your blood. If you're in the wilderness and desperately need water, you can take a plastic bag and hold it against the branch of a willow tree, and it will condensate drinkable water into the bag. Never put tools or heavy objects on the back seat or dash of your car. If you get into a crash, you might survive the collision, but these items could be the cause of your death.
This family in Texas was living with a haunted Elsa doll for years. That's what happened to Emily's daughter, who received an Elsa doll from her grandmother when she turned 1. The family kept the doll for a few years until it started speaking on its own, even when the switch was turned off. Emily also said that after 2 years, the doll suddenly began speaking Spanish, which is weird because it only spoke English the entire time they had it. In 2019, Emily decided to throw Elsa in the trash because at this point, her daughter had this doll for a very long time. But 2 weeks later, Matt opened a wooden bench in their living room and Elsa was in there. Obviously, he was confused, so he asked his kids if they had brought Elsa back into the house, and they said no. So this time, Matt and Emily put Elsa into 2 garbage bags and watched as the garbage truck picked up their garbage and took it away. But it doesn't end there. 2 weeks later, their daughter casually told them that she saw Elsa in their backyard. So when she went outside, she saw Elsa there. And at this point, Emily was freaked out and she decided to send Elsa to a friend 2,400 kilometers away with no return label. Emily said that since the doll's been gone, there has been weird things happening in their home, such as lights turning on and off and doors opening and closing. So do you guys think Elsa was haunted, or is there another explanation for all of this?
So I'm conflicted on that because, one, it sounds very much like the story for Annabelle, which is a very high-profile haunted doll case that Ed and Lorraine Warren made very famous, right? The Conjuring series talks about it quite a bit. Actually, there's movies in the Conjuring series that are explicitly dedicated to Annabelle. I don't know that I buy the idea that it's just like moving itself around, out of the garbage and just sort of walking around the backyard or whatever. However, when I was a kid, I was very afraid of Freddy Krueger. He was still fairly new and topical, and my aunt had misunderstood that fear and thought that I was actually I really liked Freddy Krueger. So she bought this doll that had a pull string and it would talk and say quotes. Robert Englund would be terrifying by proxy. And I freaked out and I immediately gave it away to my cousin. I have a big family, and we were very close, especially when we were growing up. And so we would kind of get together at this cousin's house and rearrange his house a little bit, his living room, his bedroom. You know, he had a lot of like very movable furniture. So like 6 or 7 of us would kind of rearrange all of this stuff in his house, and then we would give tours with this little fucking like rechargeable glow-in-the-dark dinosaur thing that I think someone got out of like a cereal box or something. It gave just the littlest bit of light in the room, you know, and we would walk through, you know, this modular haunted house that we were constantly removing everything. And one time it was my turn to operate the Freddy Krueger doll. Okay, this was one of the it was one of the scares that was in our haunted house, was that we had this doll and someone would be pulling the cord and making it talk. And on that particular occasion, when it was my turn to pull this cord, and I'm holding the doll, and you know, our cousins are kind of, you know, moving through this little haunted house we built. The fucking doll started talking on his own. So, like I said, I'm conflicted, because anecdotally I've experienced something similar. Yeah, I would say I'm maybe 75% inclined to believe this story about the doll.
People are freaking out after realizing they definitely should not be doing this. You all have pillows. You're probably laying on one right now watching this video, right? And I bet some of you, if you took off the pillowcase, the pillow is pretty damn dirty. And let me ask you, how old is your pillow? How long have you actually had it? And I'm not just talking about the pillowcases. Obviously, you've got to clean those every week. But the actual physical pillow, I guarantee some of you have still got the same one since when you were a child or something. All of you probably know to change your bedding every week or two, and obviously actually physically replace the sheets after a couple of years. But what people didn't realize is that the actual physical pillow has an expiry date on it. An actual expiry date. And if you don't throw the pillow away before that, then you're in for a treat. There is of course millions of bacteria living on your bed, on your pillows, because you're sleeping on it all night long, which is the reason why you've got to replace your bedding so regularly. But over time, this gets into the pillows, and the pillows don't like it. Over time become very, very bad, and normally you should be throwing your pillows away every 2 years and replacing them. I saw someone doing this test where apparently you can fold them, and if they stay up when they're folded, that means it's time to say goodbye. But as I say, I guarantee some of you have some dirty pillows that you've probably had for your whole life. It's time to throw them out.
This is the terrifying case of the Santa series.
I don't know how true some of that is. That I think it's probably, I would imagine some certain materials are more susceptible to the problems that are being described here. Obviously, bacteria is going to be a constant, but you know, like bed bugs and mites and things like that. I don't know. Some of these modern pillows might not be as susceptible to them, and 2 years seems a little bit. That's a little suspect to me. You know, 2 years is pretty small in the grand scheme of things, and most of these guarantee 5 to 10 years anymore. But all that said, I have Princess and the Pea type syndrome, where I mean, no matter what I do, my neck is so fucked up when I wake up and I'm in pain all the time from my neck. I get headaches, or I might get dizzy through the day because I'm pretty sure I'm damaging my vagal nerve just from having my neck kinked the way I sleep. So I'm constantly running through pillows, and you know, like my girlfriend would tell everybody the amount of money I've spent on pillows over the last few years. You know, it's out of fucking control. And at any given time, you know, I might have like 4 or 5 pillows near the bed, around it, you know, that I'm constantly cycling through or changing out or whatever. So this problem that they're describing really wouldn't be a problem so much for me, because I have to fucking replace my pillows probably every 7 months or so. because once they start to have a certain level of use to them, they don't fluff the right way anymore, and I can't get that support that I need to keep me from having these recurring problems with my neck. So I think you can mark me safe on these things. But also, I do think that 2 years is probably being a little bit extra cautious for, you know, for no real reason. I think you could probably stretch it to maybe 5, but you should change your pillows. That is true.
This is the terrifying case of the Santa serial killer. During Pride Festival in 2017 in Canada, Andrew Kinsman disappeared. He was the 8th man to go missing from the local area. When police entered Andrew's apartment, they found something interesting on his calendar. It said Bruce, 3 p.m. This clue led police to Bruce MacArthur. Bruce had had a troubled childhood growing up with a violent alcoholic father. Due to his religious family, he was made to hide his sexuality. He ended up marrying Janice Campbell, his high school girlfriend, but actually he was having a lot of affairs with men behind her back. He was working as a landscape gardener and also a part-time Santa Claus at the mall. In his role as Santa, he would greet children and entertain shoppers. When Janice discovered his infidelity, she divorced him, but nobody could guess what was going to unfold. In 2010, within 4 months of each other, 2 gay men disappeared from the neighbourhood of Church and Wellesley, the gay village of Toronto. 18 months later, another disappeared. Interestingly, all 3 were middle-aged immigrants. An anonymous tip came in linking Bruce with the men, but unfortunately there was no evidence to proceed any further. Then in 2012, a tip came through to police saying that a potential cannibal was loose in the area. A man was posting on underground websites claiming to have eaten brown flesh. Police discovered a man was writing on the website with the name Silver Fox, and they linked it to an email address which was linked to Bruce. However, when they questioned him, he was very friendly and helpful, so they just let him go. More men began vanishing and the total rose to 8. This brings us back to Andrew Kinsman. After seeing that Bruce was written on Andrew's calendar, they scoured CCTV from the local area and found CCTV of Andrew getting into a red van. Luckily, they tracked the van down and found it at a wrecking yard, but still intact. This was Bruce's van, and Andrew's blood was inside. They also seized Bruce's computer and found disturbing images of the men. Andrew had photographed all of the deceased men that had gone missing. He placed them in poses after being killed and photographed them. The next part of the story is an extremely dramatic turn of events, but I'm not going to have time, so I'm going to have to do a part 2.
Why is that such a commonality among some of these serial killers? You know, it's like there have been a few very prominent serial killers that have certain proclivities, you know, and it's like so many of them are repressed homosexual men. And then for some reason on top of that, whatever is going on with them, motivating them to kill, it also tends to result in them being fucking super weird with the bodies after they kill people, you know, like Dahmer, and trying to make his sex zombies out of, you know, like the dead. That why is this such a fucking thing? Like, why does this... Evil is real, y'all. Evil is real. God is real. Evil is real. That's all I can really say about it.
I'm gonna ruin your childhood memories, part 4. Did you ever play Ring Around the Rosie as a kid? Well, that game isn't so fun and innocent. Ring Around the Rosie was actually based off the plague. Pocket full of posies referred to roses in your pockets, which would hide the smell of decomposing bodies. Ashes referred to the cremated bodies whose ashes were spread around town. And then We All Fall Down meant death to everyone who got the plague.
I'd heard that before. It's weird that that would be the subject matter of a children's nursery rhyme. Like, why the fuck? Why is that something that they sing while they're playing? Why does every kid know? I mean, I don't know about every kid anymore, but when I was growing up, everyone knew that nursery rhyme. Everybody.
Here's what all you missed from yesterday's rapture. So all over the world, people decided the rapture was happening yesterday. While this was happening, all over the world, people are doing things like gathering outside and singing hymns while they await the second coming. Apparently, there was even a school that let the students out, so that way they wouldn't hit their heads on the ceiling when the rapture happens, which I don't think that's how that works. There were also a lot of people who were just putting their belongings in their front yard to give away as they wouldn't need it after the rapture occurred. One girl showed off a lamp that was worth a lot that she got from her neighbor that just put all their stuff in their yard. By the way, the people who did this are still here today. They just have less stuff now. One person even took this rapture giveaway a step further and gave away their whole car. There are also many people that you should be seeing updates from today, as there are a lot of people that were very adamant that they were going to be raptured and they were posting videos about it. And one guy even said that he would post an apology if he wasn't. Still waiting on that apology. Now, if y'all remember, these rapture rumors were started by a South African preacher. So just remember in the future, please be wary of any preacher that tells you the date that the rapture is happening, because in the Bible it says nobody will know the actual date that it happens.
No man but the Father will know the date. But about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Trust in the words in the Bible. No man will know the day. Second coming is in God's time, and only God can keep track of that.
So it's December 20th, 2024, and 33-year-old Teresa Bermal decides to bring Jell-O shots to a Christmas party. The only problem? The partygoers were 5th graders. She brought Jell-O shots into her daughter's elementary school for their annual Christmas party. So they look something like this. They're a huge hit with the kids, and within minutes, 36 of the 40 are gone. So a little bit of time goes by, a couple kids start complaining of a headache, a couple kids start complaining of a stomach ache, 2 kids start throwing up, and 1 kid who had 6 Jell-O shots straight up passes out. Teachers, who are like, what in the hell is going on, smell the alcohol, send the kids to the nurse, and by 11:15 in the morning, the assistant principal has called 911. So the cops contact the bakery that made these Jell-O shots, and they're like, absolutely not. There's no way she didn't know there was alcohol in these. Apparently, the flyer that Teresa ordered from says contains vodka, and the bakery owner showed a correspondence of text messages where Teresa straight up asked the owner, do these contain alcohol? Which she, of course, said yes. Teresa has been arrested and bail was set at $75,000.
There's so many people that are trying to hurt and or corrupt children. It's unfucking real. Jail is not good enough for people like that. For anyone that would hurt kids, jail is nowhere near good enough. Just being honest with you, I think people that hurt kids, like what we're talking about here, people that actively and intentionally hurt children should get the death penalty. Just being real with you. They're evil in a different sort of way, and they're hurting the people that are most defenseless. We don't need anyone like that in society, in my opinion.
When Actors Break Character, Part 9. In Monty Python, the actors playing as guards were instructed not to laugh, but they had no idea what was coming in the next scene. Upon the mention of Biggest Dickus, one of the guards started breaking into laughter.
I have a very great friend in Rome called Biggest Dickus.
After noticing this, Michael Palin decided to roll with it and began testing the other guards to see if they'd laugh. One guard was even sucking in his cheeks to prevent laughter because the other 2 had already failed.
Monty Python is fucking great. It's so good. It's goated. It's goated. If you haven't watched Monty Python, do yourself a favor and go and find a bunch of their movies and watch it. You know, Life of Brian is fucking great. Life of Brian, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, The Flying Circus, you know, like any of their stuff. If you can find it, watch it. You will love it. It is fucking hilarious. It's timeless. These guys are, they were special.
Did not kill my daughter Harmony.
Now, apparently he thought that if there was no body, then he could not be charged with her murder. So he even had considered at one point using a handsaw or a NutriBullet to, quote, get rid of Harmony. Can you imagine that? As a parent, trying to dismember your 5-year-old daughter with a handsaw and a freaking NutriBullet. It is beyond horrific. Now, his wife, Kayla, Harmony's stepmother, helped him cut off Harmony's clothing, which were still on her frozen little remains, while he was literally trying to thaw her out again. That's what he would do. It was a pattern. Freeze her, thaw her, squeeze her, freeze her, thaw her. Like, it is so unhinged. Apparently, too, in another gruesome detail, as if it couldn't get more horrific, Kayla and Adam had sex while Harmony's remains were in the ceiling above them, decomposing, her bodily fluids seeping into the ceiling, and they were right below her, sleeping and having sex. How disgusting are you? I mean,
again, anyone that hurts children intentionally, jail is not good enough for. They need to be taken out of society and kept out of society permanently. They should be put away in a box in the dirt. Not put away in a cell getting 3 square meals and time to exercise and socialize and whatever. We shouldn't be paying taxes for the rest of these fucking cretins' lives. We just shouldn't. These are the kinds of people that the death penalty is meant for. These people are absolute monsters, and they shouldn't be allowed anywhere near society. Even the other criminals are better than that. By leagues. And they shouldn't have to live next to people like this. Death penalty.
guys, it gets way, way worse than this either. This is like the mild version, so I am breaking it all down for you over on my podcast, Serialously, but please be warned, it is the most barbaric case I think I've ever covered to date.
On the night of September 8th, 1987, 77-year-old Minnie Clyde Winston got out of the bathtub and saw tiny droplets of a red substance all over the bathroom that hadn't been there just a short time before. She called out to her husband, 79-year-old William Winston, thinking maybe he had cut himself, but he was completely fine. They soon discovered the blood was all around the kitchen, the living room, the halls, the basement, and the crawl space. They called the police, but there was no sign of a crime. The investigation revealed the substance was human blood, but it didn't match either of the types of the Winstons, so...
What the fuck? What is the conclusion to that story? Was like the house just bleeding human blood for some reason? Like what the fuck happened? I need more on that. I need way more than what they just gave us.
New York man convicted of killing a 20-year-old who mistakenly pulled into his driveway. The jury convicted 66-year-old Kevin Monahan of killing Caitlin Gillis. On April 15, 2023, officers responded to a report of gunshots fired. When they got to the scene, they found Caitlin Gillis with a gunshot wound. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Apparently, Caitlin Gillis and her friends were lost and they were looking for a friend's house, so they mistakenly drove up Kevin Monahan's driveway. As they were driving away from his driveway, he decided to come outside and start firing for whatever reason. It was also reported Monahan was not cooperating with deputies at the scene. There were about 4 people in the car, and he fired a 20-gauge shotgun into the car, which hit Caitlin Gillis in the neck. In court, Monahan said the first shot was a warning, and the second shot was because he tripped and fell on some nails. His attorney said Monahan did not want to shoot anybody, but why else would he come outside with a shotgun and fire 2 shots? He faces 25 years to life in prison. and he will be sentenced in March. Hopefully he never comes out. Let me know.
I'm trying to wrap my head around why anybody would give a shit enough about their driveway or their lawn or what, you know, like this old school, like, get off my lawn, you damn kids, you know, like that meme of an old man shaking his fist at the youth for existing in proximity to him. I guess I don't really understand why you would ever need to get a gun for that specific problem, if you can call it a problem. I'm not anti-gun at all. I think stand your ground is a good law in a lot of instances. I don't fucking understand the idea of defending your driveway from people that are leaving your driveway. Like, what the fuck is the purpose of that? That guy is a danger to society and he should be put away. I mean, there should be nothing. I don't care if it was an accident. I don't care. Because he didn't mobilize and grab a fucking 20 gauge. Yeah, firing a 20 gauge into, like, why?
Educational purposes only.
This little girl here, her name is Terry Jo, and she would go on to survive the absolute impossible. But before I tell you what happened, hi, my name is Ashley, and I talk about crime, creepy, and unbelievable stories. If you're into that, then check out my TikTok and YouTube for more content. So the story begins when Terry Jo's father decided to rent out this luxury yacht called the Blue Belle for a family trip. It was to set sail from Fort Lauderdale in Florida all the way to the Bahamas. On the boat would be Arthur and his wife Jean, and their 3 kids, Brian, Terry Jo, and Renee. Arthur had also asked his friend and former Marine and former war veteran Julian Harvey to join him on the boat as the boat's skipper. Jean was also married to Mary Harvey, so he brought her along as well. So in total, there were 7 people on the boat. Everything had been going fine with everyone for the first 5 days, then things drastically changed. On the evening of the 5th night, Terry Jo said she woke up in the middle of the night because she heard a lot of noise coming from upstairs on the deck. So she goes upstairs and she hears her mother screaming. Then she sees her mother and her brother on the floor, and there was blood absolutely everywhere. She then sees Julian approaching her, so she asks him what's going on. He then slaps her across the face and orders her to go back downstairs to her room. So being a young child, she listens and goes back down. However, a short while later, she starts to see the water rising from the window. So she goes back upstairs and asks Julian if the boat is sinking, and he tells her that it was. Terry Jo then sees Julian jump into the only lifeboat on the ship and sail off into the ocean. At this point, she was completely alone on the boat when she remembered that there was a spare raft in one of the rooms. It was a very small raft similar to this one here, but it was enough for Terry Jo's size. So having no other choice, Terry Jo throws this little raft into the ocean and then hops in. She would then spend the next 84 hours alone at sea. And at one point throughout those 84 hours, the net mesh that you see in the photo ended up disintegrating. So her only option at that point was to literally sit on the edge with her feet dangling in the water. Then on the 4th day, a passing ship spotted Terry Jo in the water. This was a photo taken of her rescue. So they help her, they bring her onto the ship and take her to the hospital. We would later find out that Julian unalived Terry Jo's entire family and his wife Mary. It's suspected that he was trying to unalive his wife to collect her life insurance, but it's assumed that Terry Jo's father Arthur caught him in the act and intervened. That's when he then proceeded to unalive the entire family. But that's not it. We would later find out that Julian actually survived the shipwreck as well. He was also rescued by a boat. And on the day Julian was rescued, he was also told that Terry Jo had miraculously survived. He pretended like he was happy to hear that. However, the next day in his motel room, he unalived himself. Terry Jo would then grow up to have a fairly normal life.
Absolute fucking nightmare fuel to me. Nightmare fuel. My one of the greatest fears that I have in life is being fucking stranded in open water. And as a child, if that had happened to me, or I didn't catch what age she's this Terry Jo was, but I don't know that I would make it back mentally, even if I did physically. I think that might be it for me. I don't know if I'm strong enough psychologically to make it through that to make it through that one. It's literally my deepest fear, I think, is open water, not knowing what the fuck is in there looking at you, not knowing, are you gonna get eaten? Are you gonna drown? Are you gonna fucking die of exposure? I mean, brutal.
Did you guys know that in 2019, Ashton Kutcher had to go to court?
What are we looking
Fairly
at?
normal life.
What is this? What are we looking at here?
Did you guys know that in 2019, Ashton Kutcher had to go to court over a serial killer? This is Michael Gargiulo. He's been dubbed by the media as the Hollywood Ripper or the Boy Next Door Killer. Michael would kill in his own neighborhood, and investigators would say this made it easier for him to stalk his victims. Michael's first known victim was 18-year-old Trisha Picatrio, who was also sisters with Michael's close friend. In 1993, her body would be found outside of her own home. She had been stabbed at least 12 times, and her murder would go unsolved for about 18 years. Just a few years after Trisha's murder, Michael kind of set off alarm bells when he went to visit Trisha's family home. He insisted on talking to Trisha's father, who was at work at the time. He waited over an hour for him to return home. But when Trisha's father returned home, he suddenly had to leave. This set off alarm bells with the Picatrio family, and they actually let the police know. But shortly after this, Michael moved to Los Angeles to pursue a career in acting. While Michael was in LA, he met 22-year-old Ashley Ellerin, who was an aspiring actress and fashion designer. She had also become good friends with actor Ashton Kutcher, who had asked her out on a date in February of 2001. Around 8:24 that night, Ashton called Ashley to let her know that he was running late for their dinner date. And according to Ashton's testimony, Ashley told him that she'd just gotten out of the shower, which made the prosecution believe that Ashton was probably the last person that Ashley spoke to while she was alive. Shortly after their phone call, Ashley was brutally murdered. Later that night around 10:30, Ashton showed up to try to pick Ashley up for their date. Such a side note, but Ashton, really? 10:30 for a dinner date? Okay. He knocked on the door several times and got no response. Right before he was about to leave, he peeked through the window and saw what he thought was red wine stains on the carpet. Seeing the stains, Ashton thought that Ashley had gotten sick of waiting for him and decided to go out that night on her own. The next morning, Ashley's roommate and friend would return home to find her friend brutally murdered. Ashley had been stabbed a total of 47 times. Now, Ashton would later testify that he immediately called the police when he heard about this because his fingerprints were on the door. Police quickly ruled him and another man that Ashley was dating at the time out of the case. However, it took them a long time to tie this crime to Michael. In the meantime, though, the other investigating officers were able to get a DNA sample from Michael that had matched some of the DNA left on the scene at Trisha's murder. But at the time, investigators ruled this DNA out because Michael had given Trisha a ride home the night before. And even though this DNA was found under Trisha's fingernails, they said this could have easily been transfer DNA. So they let him go, and in 2005, he murdered again, taking the life of 32-year-old Maria Bruno, who was also a mother of 4. At the time, police hadn't tied together the other 2 murders, and he left behind very little evidence at the scene of Maria's murder, leaving investigators stumped until 2008, when he attacked a woman named Michelle in her own bedroom. Michelle fought back, cutting Michael in the process, and he fled, leaving a trail of blood DNA behind him. This, along with Michelle's statement, would close all 3 of these cases, but it would take years for this to go to trial. Michael was sentenced to death in California over Maria and Ashley's murder. He is still awaiting a trial over Trisha's in Illinois. He claims to have up to 10 victims.
I hate hearing stories. I hate hearing stories about cops fucking up an apprehension of a serial killer. You know, like bumbling fucking morons that are like, whoops, he seems normal, let's let him go. oh, the DNA that's under her fingernails, it's probably just nothing, and you know, that's easy. You could have got it from anything. Like, I understand that they might look at that and think that that's not enough evidence, but for fuck's sake, maybe use that as a justification to try and go and collect more evidence. You know, like, can we... There was a kid that was being killed by Jeffrey Dahmer way back when, who had managed to fucking escape. This was after Jeffrey had already fucking dosed him, drilled a hole into his skull, and poured acid into his brain. The kid fucking escapes. He's wandering the street, totally nude, with blood fucking dripping down his head. The cops catch him. Bystanders are shouting the police down about how this kid is in desperate need of help. Jeffrey Dahmer happens to run up and start to explain to the police that they were gay lovers and they were having a fight. And the cops let this fucking kid go with Dahmer. They returned the kid, who is fully nude, bloody, and totally incoherent because of the damage that had already been done to him. They let him go into the custody of his own fucking murderer. And mind you, if I'm not mistaken, the kid was only like 13 or 14 or some shit like that. And you had people there that were like, no fucking way, don't you dare let him go with him. They knew, but the police were like, here you go. I am not anti-police in any way, but I am very anti-bad police. I hate hearing stories of law enforcement incompetence, or God forbid, stories of genuine racism or genuine, excessive violence or any of that stuff. It's the worst thing. It really is. I hate hearing about it. It makes them look so fucking bad, and as somebody who really does support law enforcement, nothing is worse. Nothing is worse to see for cops than any story where they have the criminal, they have the murderer dead to rights, and they just let him go. It's the worst. I hate it.
This woman burned alive the man who raped her daughter. I'm True Crime Caitlin, and this is Maria del Carmen Garcia. This case takes place in Spain, just outside of Alicante, and in October 1998, Maria is cooking some dinner for her husband and her 13-year-old daughter Veronica when she notices that she's run out of bread. Maria went to Veronica asking if she wouldn't mind popping down to the shop and picking some up, and Veronica was happy to do so. She slipped on her shoes and walked out the door. As Veronica was walking down the street, a neighbour of hers, 62-year-old Antonio Cosme, was getting into his car. Recognizing one another, Veronica and Antonio smiled and greeted each other when, out of nowhere, Antonio grabbed Veronica, dragged her to his car, forced her inside, and then drove away. He would drive Veronica to a secluded wooded area where he would horrifyingly rape her at knife point. Hours later, he dropped Veronica back off in her street, and before he let her out of the car, he threatened her, telling her not to tell anyone what had happened. However, by the time Veronica went back into her home, Maria was already frantic. She had only sent her 13-year-old daughter down to the shop to buy some bread, and at this point, she had been gone for hours. After some gentle pressing from her mother, Veronica broke and told her everything, how she was walking down the street and Antonio forced her into the car, held her at knife point and horrifically raped her. Immediately, the Del Carmen Garcias went down to the police station to report this. Bruises, scrapes and marks that were found all across Veronica's body supported what she was saying, proving that this horrible thing had happened to her. However, the local community weren't convinced. Antonio Cosme came from a very powerful, prominent, well-respected Spanish family, and due to his age as well, again he was 62, the local community didn't believe that he could do something like this, and so instead of believing Veronica, they branded her as a liar. Despite this, however, Antonio was charged, taken to court, and he was handed a sentence of 9 years imprisonment for this. Over the next couple of years, the mental health of the Del Carmen Garcia family deteriorated. Veronica allegedly spent some time in a psychiatric hospital, and Maria fell into a deep depression. Shockingly, after only serving 5 years of his sentence, Antonio was granted the ability to leave the prison on several day releases, much to the disappointment of Veronica's family, who at this point had lost all faith in the justice system. On the evening of the 13th of June 2005, Maria is stood at a bus stop just outside of Alicante when someone familiar begins to approach her. This person leans over to Maria's ear and whispers, quote, "How's your daughter?" before walking away smirking. Maria stood in shock and disbelief because that person was Antonio. He was out on a day release and he was taunting Maria. Her daughter had suffered for years due to this man's heinous actions, and now here he is, released from prison on day release, casually walking down the street, heading to a bar to go for drinks with his friends. Blinded with rage, Maria stormed to a nearby petrol station where she picked up a container filled with gasoline. She made her way to the bar where Antonio was drinking with his friends, and in a flash she doused him in the gasoline, setting him on fire and burning him alive. Antonio would sustain 90% burns across his entire body, and he would succumb to his injuries in the hospital, dying a couple of days later. Maria would be arrested, and she received an outpour of support from her community. People would gather outside of the court and they would chant and cheer for her. A petition that was set up had over 10,000 signatures for Maria to be let off with the crime. Despite all of the support and the petitions, they didn't work. Maria would be found guilty, and upon appeal she would receive a sentence of 5.5 years. The judge in this case recognising that at the moment that Maria doused Antonio in gasoline and set him on fire, she wasn't in the right state of mind. At that very moment she was temporarily insane. After serving her time, Maria Del Carmen Garcia would be released from a prison in Alicante in 2018.
A 13-year-old. Prison isn't good enough for anyone that hurts children on purpose. Death penalty, every one of these fucking people. That's it. And what the mom did, it's unfortunate because it's vigilantism, which is not a good thing for society. But fuck, is it understandable. The idea that you could be taunted by your child's abuser, their rapist, so glib about what they did to steal that child's fucking life from her. Not only is he burned in gasoline by the mother, understandably, but almost fucking certainly is that piece of shit burning in hell. I can't... God is good. God is good even when the world and everything in it isn't. And that man's day where he had to stand in front of our Lord and account for all of the shit that he did, unrepentant. I can't tell you how much I wish we could see that moment of judgment. When God casts these demons back into the hells that they belong in. Alright guys, that was it. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Let me know if you want me to do more content like this. Maybe something different, you know. Just give me a shout. Let me know.